It's my belief, Sean, that we will get to a time in my natural lifetime when you cannot purchase an ounce of gold for fiat money. Ultimately, I think we end up with a Zimbabwe type scenario and a runaway hyperinflation. When it occurs, it will feel like a bolt of lightning coming out of a clear blue sky, and much of the commentary we will hear in the mockingbird press is nobody could have ever imagined that this could happen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the one and only Rob Kirby from Kirby Analytics back on the line. Hey Rob, what's going on, buddy?
Well, we're finally enjoying the first vestiges of summer here in the north in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Well, hallelujah. Maybe they can lay off HARP for a while and things will get back to normal. I'd like to see that drought end in California, wouldn't you?
Well, it would be nice. Would rather ensure our food supplies going forward for much of the exotic foods that we are all so accustomed to enjoying from sunny California.
Yeah, it's the breadbasket. Most people don't realize that. A lot of people think the breadbasket's the Midwest, but the Midwest is largely corn at this point, and certainly there's a lot of dairy cows. But
GMO corn and GMO wheat.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to poison us slowly, and they're doing a darn good job of it. I have a live one for you here to kick us off today. Do you want me to start, or do you have something on your agenda first?
Well, I always have agendas, as you know, Sean, but I'll defer to you.
All right, get this. Your last task after a Disney layoff? Train your foreign replacement. We just posted this at SGT Report on Thursday morning. And this is without the TPP in place, which has just been fast-tracked, Rob. And so you can just imagine what's coming. About 250 Disney employees were told in late October that they would be laid off. Many of their jobs were transferred to immigrants on temporary visas for highly skilled technical workers who were brought in by an outsourcing firm based in India. Over the next 3 months, some Disney employees were required to train their replacements to the jobs they had just lost. Boy, you know, they already gutted our industry and manufacturing, and now they're coming after the technical and specialized positions, Rob.
Yeah, well, Sean, that's long been the crux of the open border on the southern flank of the United States. It's anybody who believes that that's done by accident is whistling past the graveyard, so to speak. This has been done to allow an influx of let's just say underappreciated workers, desperate people, to displace and keep a lid American workers, and to keep a lid on wage demands in America. This is why we have no inflation in the labor market, because the labor market has been kept artificially oversupplied with a lack of an effective border between the United States and Mexico. So this has been a long running thing, and it has achieved the desired result, and that is to arrest and keep under control wage demands in America.
Yeah, and it needs to be said, I want to remind people that the TPP, which was just fast-tracked after being defeated, I believe, on the 12th, it was rebranded by the Council on Foreign Relations, I believe, on the 14th as the TPA. Then it was buried in some obscure measure, HR 1314, I believe. And it's been fast-tracked, and if people think it's bad now with the economy and the outsourcing of jobs, just wait until the TPP is signed by the criminal-in-chief, right?
Yes, but Sean, do you notice the common theme here? How it was TPP, and now and as you just mentioned, now it's being referred to as TPA. And how many more acronyms are they going to come out with before this thing actually get passed? And of course, we all know it's so good for us. That's why we're not allowed to know what the contents of it are. Right. But this changing of acronyms, it's sort of familiar to me, because we went from having the menacing enemy in the war on terror. We had the enemy of the Al Qaeda, and then we changed the name of Al Qaeda. The Al Qaeda, by the way, was for those who don't realize, Al Qaeda was a creation of Western intelligence, and so then when everybody got funky with the notion that Al Qaeda was created by the West, lo and behold, they changed the name to, I don't know what it is currently, but it seems to me it changes around from Al Qaeda to ISIS to IS to ISIL. I don't know which derivation we're currently working with in its current iteration, but this is all done to confuse people, and it's done on purpose. And the fact that this is being done, these purposeful contortions of names of things that are murky and that are creations of the globalist clique. These things are all done demonstrating the contempt for humanity that these people really have.
Yeah, 100% agree. And it should be stated that since you mentioned Al Qaeda being a creation of the United States, it's just been revealed that the Pentagon created ISIS to topple Assad in Syria. That's now on the record, but you will not hear that broadcast by the mainstream mockingbird media. I just spoke with a new friend of mine. His name is Waldemar Perez, and he's done a presentation that we just talked about, an interview that I'll be posting soon about the mainstream media as a weapon against the people of the United States. And that's what they are at this point, Rob. The mainstream mockingbird media that SGT report is designed and born to combat, those people are truly traitors because, like I said, the CFR rebranded the TPP as the TPA, the Council on Foreign Relations, and if you go through the laundry list of the multimillionaire anchors and quote-unquote journalists at CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, ABC News, CBS News, NBC News, Ryan Williams, they're all CFR members. So they are truly traitors aligned against us.
Yes, no, absolutely working to, at least in my view, Sean, to dismantle what was or what we did historically know as the great United States of America.
Yeah, and it's just an absolute shame. I'm going to mention it in just about every interview I do from now on. The Mockingbird mainstream media, they're traitors, and they're all highly paid traitors. They're made men. George Stephanopoulos just signed a $105 million contract before being caught for giving $75,000 to the Clinton Foundation. Of course, where did he work before ABC News as a Mockingbird? He worked in the White House under Bill Clinton. You know, he was like a communications director. He's a made man, and let's see here. I want to ask you this.
Sounds like a conspiracy theory to me, Sean, and that George Snuffleupagus could do so well for himself. I mean, we should actually be saying congratulations. Come on.
George Snuffleupagus, I like that. Well, let me ask you this. There's news from Zero Hedge, and I love this headline. IMF panics, slashes U.S. growth forecasts, and demands that the Fed stay on hold for another year. Interesting that the IMF would yield any power over the Fed. I guess they're just all in it together, the central banks working against us. But as it relates to the GDP and the crumbling U.S. economy, don't you find that fascinating? They're saying in this report here, Rob, that IMF cuts U.S. 2015 growth forecast from 3.1% to 2.5%. There's no way this economy is growing at 2.5%. And in fact, if the government would use the real rate of inflation, we would see a tremendous depression already taking hold.
But Sean, all we're seeing here is the IMF giving the Fed cover to not raise rates, and which, in my view, they won't do anyway. And we've seen some volatility, let's just say, in the sovereign bond markets in the last 2 or 3 days. And my view on all that is that that's been allowed to occur to give everybody the false belief that there really is a bond market. And I don't believe that there really is a bond market at all, because I believe that bond prices and yields in the macro sense are all predetermined in back rooms. They're planned, and they have the global derivatives complex to effectively put bond yields and T-bill yields in the major currencies exactly where they want, whenever they want, however they want. And failure to recognize this is a tragedy on behalf of the mainstream analyst community. And isn't that funny? The mainstream analyst community in the economic world, they are all as highly levered, or let's just say glued to the ruling elites as the mockingbird mainstream presses that you just mentioned who are traitorous. So um, the problem is we have an awful lot of traitorous entities and a lot of traitorous individuals who are all being very well fed by the existing system, who really don't have a whole lot of uh, uh, inclination to make things different or to point out just what's happened.
Hmm. Well, prior to ringing you up here on Skype, I had written down just a short list of things that I wanted to speak with you about so that I wouldn't forget. And the list was this: IMF panics, U.S. economy GDP plummeting, worse if real inflation numbers are used, TPP fast track, Disney layoffs, and this one, debt is death. And I think I wrote that down because I had a really important conversation with Bill Holter recently in which he said this is how people will lose everything. And he's saying what you're saying. He's saying it's the debt markets. That's what we need to be looking at. The dislocations in the debt markets have become shocking, with some of these overnight moves really being mini crashes. And the debt markets, which I think you just basically said, the bond markets, the debt markets, are a mirage. Once those go, everything goes.
Sean, I'm not sure if I've brought up this direct line of rationale with you in the past, but if not, I want to bring it up, and if we have talked about it before, it deserves repeating. We have analysts around the world who talk about the bond market. They want us to take their analysis seriously, and yet we have in the world, depending on who you talk to, we have somewhere between 700 trillion and a 1.5 quadrillion derivatives market. 80% of all outstanding derivatives, Sean, are interest rate contracts. Okay, the vast majority of those being interest rate swaps, and or let's just say a very, very large component of them being interest rate swaps. So we're talking about interest rate swaps that have bond trades, cash bond trades embedded in them, to the tune of hundreds of trillions of dollars, dwarfing the size of total debt outstanding around the world. And not one respectable analyst will even bring the word up when they discuss and analyze the sovereign bond markets or bond yields or where rates are going. And they're all mum on this subject. Nobody will talk about it, and it's like it doesn't exist, or it doesn't matter. And I know that there are a very small percentage of people out there who will try to address what I'm saying by saying that cash bond markets and interest rate swaps are neutral, are a zero sum gain. And to that, I will say, when interest rate swaps are conducted interbank, vanilla interbank between banks, that's correct. But when you have an entity like the Exchange Stabilization Fund taking one side of those trades, and they're not providing the payer of fixed with government bonds, it forces one side of the trade into the cash market to buy those bonds. So in the sense that the Exchange Stabilization Fund, who is active in all markets and particularly active in the interest rate arena and in the sovereign bond market via the interest rate swaps, that is a fallacy to say that interest rate swaps are a zero-sum gain. They have an enormous influence in creating stealth settlement demand for U.S. government debt between 3 and 5 years, between 3 and 10 years in duration. And this is what has given the ruling elites the control of the long end of the interest rate market, where historically they only had the ability to set the overnight rate or the Fed funds rate, and to a lesser extent maybe the T-bill rates. But it's been the misuse, the abuse of having the Exchange Stabilization Fund involved in interest rate swaps of 3 to 10 years in duration, which has given these people absolute and utter control of the long end of the curve. And this, Sean, is why long-term rates were forced down to the levels that they were,
Right.
because the real market would have never taken them there.
This is what I was going to ask you. Is this why the manipulation of LIBOR was such a conspiracy against humanity involving the world's largest criminal banks? Because of the fact that the U.S. government is issuing far more bonds than there are buyers for, because of the Exchange Stabilization Fund creating stealth settlement demand, because of the fact that this market, were it not manipulated, would have crashed a long time ago?
Very much so, and I think you're hitting all the points there, Sean. The Just understand that the LIBOR side, when you're talking about, or as I just did, about medium-term interest rate swaps, the long or the fixed side of the trade is governed by the call it the bond market, but the floating rate side of the trade is all pegged and run off of LIBOR rates, typically 3-month LIBOR rates. And these things have been contorted. These things have been twisted. These things have been pushed and pulled. There are actors. I'm going to say it's officialdom pulling the levers on the long end, and it's banks acting in collusion, pulling the levers on the short end in the LIBOR manipulation. And the difference is just the LIBOR typically, Sean, refers to the short end of the market, 1 year and less, and the long end of the market, we're referring to stuff that matures in 3 years or longer. So you've got your short end manipulations and you've got your long end manipulations. The long end manipulations are achieved through the interest rate swaps. The short end manipulations are through LIBOR and a LIBOR-based interest rate derivative called an FRA, or a future rate agreement, which is a bet on what LIBOR is going to be at some point in the future, hence future rate agreement.
Okay. I'm taking notes here because you are one of the only people that I've ever heard hammer this time and time again, the Exchange Stabilization Fund, and the power that it wields. They wield more power than the plunge protection team.
Yeah, Sean, and the reason I bring it up is because I used to be a broker of these instruments institutionally, and people that I saw doing the trades that I reference here in the international marketplace, specifically Chase Manhattan Bank in New York, was a very prominent player coming in and playing the interest rate swap game in a non-vanilla way, where they would force the payer of fixed into the bond market to buy bonds. I did trades with them where my client had to go into the cash bond market to buy trades to hedge their trade, because Chase wouldn't provide the bonds. So I speak from experience. The trades I'm talking about, I've done. I've personally done them. I've done them more than 10 times, and it was years ago. But you see, this is the incubator. It was the whole. You see, interest rate swaps, Sean, were never invented to be an instrument of repression or control of markets. Interest rate swaps were created, largely with the notion that they would be marketed to corporates to allow corporates to effectively achieve cheaper long-term funding, and the banks could make more fees marketing it to them. But you see, the powers that be realized that this financial derivative, this instrument, could be used in a way to achieve control. And so the instrument ended up being used in a way by the elites, by officialdom, in a way it was never conceived by the people who actually engineered and built it. And it's sort of like, to a point, and this is maybe a bit of a maybe not the best comparison, but it's, if you've ever heard of the movie or gone to see the movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you can say that chainsaws are very bad, but chainsaws weren't designed to cut people up. Chainsaws were designed to cut trees down. But when somebody takes an instrument like a chainsaw and uses it in such a perverse way, it can give you a very, very ugly view of what a chainsaw is all about. And to a point, I'm going to say that interest rate swaps were invented to benefit mankind and to benefit corporates and to benefit companies in their day-to-day operations and their ability to their ability to fund themselves, and yet it's been ultimately used in a way by elites because they realized they could. It's been used as a method of control, and in extreme cases, like we see today, to drive interest rates at the long end of the curve to zero. And
Okay.
that's exactly what's been done.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you two more questions here. One of the things I'm going to try to do is do shorter, tighter interviews because Google Analytics is showing me very clearly that the average attention span on most of my interviews is 15 minutes. That's where we lose 50% of the people. And I don't know why that is because I think these conversations are so important. But I'll try to do a better job though in tightening them up. So two more questions
Do
for
you
you here.
believe? Do you believe Google?
Well, yeah, that's a good loaded question. I probably ought not believe Google, and I probably ought to do these interviews, and they should be as long as they're going to be because that is the goal of doing good interviews. So, no, it's a fair question. Well, Rob, let me ask you this. I think this is important because what we see here is a derivatives bomb. Financial nuclear weapon, I think, is what Warren Buffett at one point called them. Of course, he's in on it. But I see from my friend Dave here at X22 Report, EU orders 11 countries to enact bail-in rules within 2 months. It appears that what these criminals are going to do is just rape and pillage nation after nation after nation, all of us. The pensions, nobody's safe, not even in this country. Nobody is safe. When this thing blows up, they're not going to declare some debt jubilee, are they? They're just going to rape and pillage us all financially.
I believe that's what they're going to do, Sean, and and in my mind, that should serve as a good reason to make people want to go out and buy some physical precious metal.
Yeah, okay, perfect. This is the perfect segue to my last important question here that I had for you. I wanted your opinion on this poorly written article from Mockingbird Bloomberg author Nicholas Larkin. Been tracking his work for a while. He's the one, Rob, if you recall, he called the silver market a $5 trillion market in an article that really caught me off guard because there's no way that's true unless they count all the paper fraud. Now, in this latest article, he's written about Chinese gold, which was a very, very poorly written, poorly researched article. He made the thesis that if China were to announce they had 10,000 tons of gold, it would somehow justify a repricing of gold to $64,000 an ounce. And then he went on to argue how China has nowhere near that much gold, citing 2009 numbers of around 1,100 tons. So the point is that now even Bloomberg is saying there's going to be an epic shift if and when China announces they have 10,000 tons of gold. What do you make of that particular Mockingbird story and those numbers?
Well, to begin with, I don't think China's necessarily ever going to tell us exactly how much gold they have. And what I and I'll follow that up by saying, would I be surprised if China had 10,000 tons of gold now? No, but I also wouldn't be surprised if China had 20 or 25,000 metric tons of gold right now. And the notion that China's ever gonna come out and just willingly say, this is how much we have, and ta-da. I don't think that holds a whole lot of water. The only reason I could see China, ever admitting that they have a large amount, whether it would be the full amount or not, I don't know. With the notion of we have this much, and we're gonna show you and verifiably how much we have, but now United States, we want you to show us yours. We want to see it. We want to have a real credible accounting of how much you have because you've been claiming for years that you have 8,000, just over 8,000 tons,
Yeah.
and now we want to see it.
You just triggered such an important thought, and thank you for doing it. I just read an article last night that said that the U.S. government has, or the Treasury, they've lost 7 audits of the Fort Knox gold. So your point's an excellent one. China's probably going to say, show us the gold, just like the rest of the world. Where is it, New York Fed? Where is it, Fort Knox?
Yeah, well, and isn't it convenient how things get lost, and it literally boils down to Sean being almost like an Abbott and Costello who's on first sort
That's
of
right.
sort of thing,
Yeah.
and I mean I hate to frame this up in a humorous way,
No,
and in
please
doing
do.
so,
We need
I
humor.
no, but
We
in
need humor
doing
to
so,
keep from
listen,
crying.
yeah, the alternative is to cry, and I think the proper way to characterize it really it's gallows humor,
Hmm.
and the financial pickle that the West is in right now, uh, because of the fraud, because of the systemic fraud and the systemic abuse all of our capital markets. It really puts us in a very, very sad story. And this sad story, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to have a very good ending. And there's only certain things that people can do to try to attempt to minimize the negative impact when it really boils up and manifests itself. And I don't know what else to say to anyone other than you're going to be in better stead than those who don't if you acquire some physical precious metal. Probably makes some sense to have some storable food, and it probably makes sense to have a way of defending the things that you're going to need to survive.
Yeah.
These are common sense, at least in my view, Sean. These are common sense conclusions. I don't think there's anything conspiratorial about, nothing laced in conspiracy about them. This is just observing the field in front of you, and if you can't observe the field in front of you, you're likely to get run over.
Yeah, and a lot of people are going to get run over. And if we could, just one last thing here, I want to swing back and talk about that $64,000 gold projection from Nicholas Larkin. I did a video, Rob, back in September of 2010. So, let's see, where are we? So, almost 5 years ago, and it was called The Curious Case for $936 an ounce silver. And in that 5-minute video, I have sound bites from Adrian Douglas, who had done very quantifiable research. And at that point in time now, going back more than 5 years really, because I was using research of his, it was probably a year old, he was justifying a price of around $54,000 an ounce gold based on the bullion banking fraud and the rehypothecated and missing gold and the loaned out gold and the leveraged gold and the paper gold. Back in 2010, he was saying, $40,000, $50,000 gold. Now, fast forward 5 years later with all this money printing and in China's activities in trying to get as much physical gold as they can get their hands on, in the Nicholas Larkin article, who knows what the price ought to be once this thing crumbles? It's impossible to predict at this point.
Well, Sean, what you're speaking to is the whole notion that when you print infinite amounts of fiat money, its value, once you hit a few tripwires, and the currency, and people lose faith in the currency, what the nominal price of something tangible that's desirable, that's universally accepted as being money, which precious metal is. What the price is in a nominal currency unit that's become worthless, it's almost irrelevant, because it's my belief, Sean, that we will get to a time in my natural lifetime. I believe we'll get to a time when you cannot purchase an ounce of gold for fiat money. So at that point, you can say, ultimately, I think we end up with a Zimbabwe type scenario and a runaway hyperinflation.
Yeah.
And I think that that's been baked into the cake, and that will occur at some point in time. I cannot say what day that will occur, but I can say that in all likelihood, when it occurs, it will feel like a bolt of lightning coming out of a clear blue sky, and much of the commentary we will hear in the Mockingbird press is nobody could have ever imagined that this could happen.
Yeah.
And yet the gold bugs have been talking about its inevitability for a very long time, and we have been shunned, we have been mocked, we have been derided, and you know what? That's fine, and that's all fine and well, because you know what? You can fool Mother Nature some of the time, but you can't fool Mother Nature all the time. And this printing of money, thinking that it doesn't have disastrous effects down the road, is like trying to fool Mother Nature all the time. Keep up the good work, guys.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, and I just want to back you up and say that GATA and those that have been talking about this debt bubble and the debt bomb and the value of real physical precious metals for so very long have been derided by who? The Mockingbird mainstream media, the same people that helped rebrand and fast-track the TPP, the same people who would not be honest with the people about the fact that the TPP is secret and won't talk about it, the same people that won't tell you about the 7 Fort Knox audits that have been lost, the same people that will not tell you that ISIS ISIS is a Pentagon creation designed to topple Assad in Syria and now being used against the people. Those are the people deriding us.
See, Sean, being mocked and derided by a bunch of Brian Williams wannabes and lookalikes doesn't really bother me in the least.
Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't bother me either. I just want people to understand that those that are doing the derision are the traitors. Those are the people that we're trying to combat every single day with real news and real information. And Rob Kirby from Kirby Analytics is one of those shining voices, really, in the alternative truth movement, economically and as it relates to precious metals, and really geopolitically. Rob, you've always been so good and so gracious about being truthful about what's going on geopolitically, internationally. You don't shy away from spilling the beans on the true criminals, and that's why we love you.
Well, I thank you for your kind words.
Our guest has been the one and only Rob Kirby from Kirby Analytics, kirbyanalytics.com. And guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for your support at sgtreport.com, thelibertymill.com, and thephaser.com. Real news, 24/7. God bless.
This is going to be a overnight or over the weekend type of event where you have what you have on a Friday, you wake up on a Monday morning and you can't trade anything and you're locked into your position. So it's absolutely imperative that you have what you want to have in the new coming world, because you won't have a chance to change it.